Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I'm on location as far as I'm in Denver, Colorado. Came out here for Thanksgiving with my with my sister-in-law, my wife's family. You know, my wife lives with me. Well, I live with her in Utah. So she spends every holiday out there with my family. And we agreed to, there wasn't any agreement, but she said that every year we spend Thanksgiving with her family, which I don't have any issue with. You know, I love her family, I enjoy her family, and I enjoy seeing my wife be able to spend time with her family. But since this being a holiday weekend, I don't have any specific Thanksgiving stories or anything, but you know, the story that I brought for you guys last week about the war between the MS-13 and the Black Hand, and about Gato getting killed. You know, I've been having a conversation with my homeboy that's, you know, as a high-ranking member of the Texas MA. You know, he's down in the Texas prison. We did time together in the pen as far as federal prison concerned. We met each other in 2001, was in Beaumont together, and was in Florence together before he left, and then I left. But when he left, he went back to the state joint. And he's been slammed down over there because, you know, when you're a confirmed member of one of the TS gangs or the Texas MA gang, they fear you. So they keep you locked down in solitary confinement. But he's really one of the dudes that I communicate with. We've been good friends since we were kids. I guess we can say kids because when we first went to the penitentiary, we were 19, 20 years old, you know, and we practically grew up together. And when I was asking him about, you know, the MS-13 and the MA, because, you know, I hear the news that Gato got killed or whatever, but I don't have the details behind it because I'm not privy to all their conversations. But with these other gangs, these other families, they're privy to those information because those information is, for the most part, a security. Like, they have to know who's at war with who and who's not what, because there's alliances that are formed in the penitentiary. And there's enemy. If you're an enemy of my friend, then you're my enemy. If I have an alliance with this gang and they're beefing with this other gang, then it's almost an obligation and responsibility to pick up that beef. You know, the beef with the California MA and the TS started out in California. You know, the TS, if people don't know, TS started out in California prison. And, you know, when you're out of town or whatever, you're outnumbered. So the TS was formed in the California prison to protect themselves from the Black Hand and the Serranos. Well, when the Texas MA was created, I want to say that was created out of California too. The guy that created it were good friends with one of the Black Hand. And in agreement that the Black Hand gave permission to use the name Texas MA, they had to carry on the beef. So the Texas MA ended up beefing with the TS too. But you know, all that's come full circle as far as like the old heads from the TS and Texas MA are, you know, really kind of tired of it that they're losing all these soldiers and stuff. And for me, I think it's good that they're able to coexist on a yard. Yeah, they're not homies or nothing. They're not friends. And a lot of them still really don't like each other. But they have rules and laws in place for them to be able to occupy the same space. And in the federal prison, on the yards that I've been on, where there's TS and Texas MA, they've been able to have each other's back, they aid and assist each other when it comes to things that are outside the race. You know, of course, they always deal with their own stuff, in-house stuff. But right now, the TS and the Texas MA, they're at war with the Bisons. While the Texas MA that was in another spot had got jumped by some Bisons. So in retaliation, it spread throughout all the different penitentiary, and it's on site. And in conjunction, when they had the truth with the TS also picked up that beef. So right now, the TS, the Texas MA, are at war with the Bisons. The Black Hand and the Serranos are at war with the MS-13. And the Norteños and the Serranos, they've been at war. You know, I read on a comment that the Black Hand and the NF out in California had a kind of a truce, and they aid and assist each other, had each other's back. But I'm here to tell you that truth wasn't sanctioned by the old heads. And in federal prison, it's a different story. And I'm privy to that information, but, you know, that's something that I can't divulge here on what, you know, all the details and stuff that goes on with that politics. But I'm just mentioning, you know, all the different wars and all the different families and stuff that have been at war and are continuing to be at war. But at the same time, just because you have an enemy doesn't mean you don't respect it. And today I want to share you a story about Gato. But this is not the Gato that just got killed by the MS-13. I thought mistakenly it was the same one that I shared the story about previous that used to be a TS. But I was told by my homeboy just last week, you know, we communicated and stuff on here, and he was like, no, that one was a different Gato, because I was asking him about the Gato that we know that just died just a few years back around, you know, like when I finally heard the news, it was 2017. So I don't know exactly what year that he got killed. And it's true that some people comment that the person that killed him wasn't even a MS-13 member. But however it went down, the Black Hands got a green light on the MS-13 because of that incident. Now, the Gato I'm trying to tell you about today was one I did a story back a few videos ago. But, you know, me, I can stand to be corrected. I don't know, you know, some of these stories, these are legends, you know, they're almost myth just because of the craziness and the people involved and the respect that they have for these individuals. So I've been shared these stories with a few different people that, you know, was there at the time or had heard about it or seen about it. But this story comes from my homeboy. He was in Marion with a lot of, you know, high-ranking dudes when he was a youngster. And, you know, the story goes, Gato when came to Lompoc. Again, this is a different Gato. He was in there in the 70s. So that's way before my time. I was born in 77, which is probably a lot older than a lot of viewers right now, right? But when he got to Lompoc, he didn't tell anybody that he was a TS. And during the few years that he was in Lompoc, he got really cool with some of the Black Hand members. And they ended up making him a prospect because they respected him because he was a G. And in the process of making him a prospect, during the time he was prospecting, he brought them 2 bodies, meaning he carried out 2 hits and killed 2 people for them. One of them ended up getting him sent to Leavenworth. Now, when he got to Leavenworth, there was a TS dude over there named Renee. When he got there, Renee had went to Black Bob. Black Bob was over there and a few others. He had went to Black Bob, told him, hey, you know, there's a member over here. That was one of our own. he dropped his flag. He's a TS member and he dropped his flag. But according to Black Bob and the rest of the Black Hands, they were like, shit, he's made. He's one of us. He's our brother now. So regardless of how he ended up where he was, they had enough respect and enough love for him. And he's proven himself by bringing them a couple of bodies and along with other shit that they've been into. Because you have to understand, back in the 70s, the 80s, and even the early 90s, there was a lot of funk going on. Because these dudes are barely just getting brought into the system. Because everybody's from a state. You know, you're from Utah, you're from California, you're from Texas, you're from New York. And most of the time when you catch a case, you go do your time in your respective state. But now the feds are starting to bring everybody into the feds. Before, the only people that used to go to the feds were like the Italian mobster, you know, international terrorists or criminal, bank robbers, and people that were doing with fraud and forgery and counterfeit money and money laundering and tax evasion. But the federal government started bringing in gang members. They started indicting gang members, started using the RICO Acts on gang members because they practically took down the Italian mob, you know, during the time of Edgar Hoover when he was the FBI director. You know, they passed the RICO Act to be able to use it to take down these organized crime. And once they almost practically wiped them out, they figured, hell, let's just use it on everybody and anybody. You know, fast forward 2006, my hood got RICO. And I'm not here to inflate or exaggerate. You know, me and my homies, we're not organized crime. We're not anywhere near close to it. You know, we was just gangbanging and ended up getting caught up on a lot of different shit. And, you know, the state, you know, the feds in Utah got tired of it and decided to RICO us. So I'm never going to try to pass myself off like I'm a made dude or my organization. It's not even an organization, it's this and that. But the thing that I can be proud of, that, you know, a lot of my homeboys, you know, you got rats in every hood. I'm not going to say that we didn't have rats in our hood because that's just, it's almost impossible. But for the most part, you know, all my homies stayed solid. They all went and did their time. They all held their water. And again, we're small. We're more of a family. We're more of brothers than a gang. But back to the story. So Renee had went to Black Bob and told him, hey, there's a dude here that used to be a TS that he dropped his flag. You know, so you know, like I said, as far as Black Bob is concerned, is that he's one of their brothers now, and they're not going to allow a TS to come and do anything to him. So they set a meeting. So when they came out to have a meeting, what was told to be right here, you know, I'm looking at it. I don't want to show his name. That's on my text message just to protect his identity. But you know, when it came out, all the Black Hands came out, all the Sureños came out, but not all the TS members came out at that time. You know, one, they probably didn't know that it was going to go down the way it was going to go down, but regardless, Renee and a few of his homeboys came out. A few of his brothers came out. When they came out and met up at the place that they were supposed to have the discussion, the Black Hand and Sureños took off on them. And according to the legend, according to the story, they had 4 or 5 Sureños, Black Hand, stabbing up Renee. They were stabbing him up, but he wouldn't go down. You know, no matter how many times he got stabbed up, he stayed on his feet until somebody hit him in the head with a bocce ball. You know, in the penitentiary, we have bocce court. And if anybody know what a bocce ball is, it's the size of a softball, but weighs about 5 pounds. It's heavy. Maybe not so 5 pounds, but it's hard as a rock. You know, that shit is heavy. And if you get hit upside the head with it, you're going to go down. So I guess he got hit in the head with it and got knocked out and fell unconscious. And when he fell down, they left a knife in his chest. You know, somebody stabbed him, left a knife in his chest, and walked off because they thought he was done. They thought he was dead. There's a knife sticking out of his chest. He's unconscious. So they walked off. But then, you know, at this time, this shit is popping off all over the yard. Well, the legend goes that Renee came to. He woke up, pulled the knife out of his chest, and went on to stab a bunch of Sureños and Black Hand. And that's when they turned around and finished him off and killed him. You know, even though there's a war with, you know, at that time, even though they went to war, the story was told to my homeboy by Wero Shai. You know, these guys all passed away. They're old. And for me, sharing the story today is just paying homage to these soldiers in our life. You know, like I say over and over again, you might not agree with the lifestyle that we live or the decisions that we made, but these men that bought into these things, they buy into 100%. You have everybody out there that says ride and die till the wheels fall off, I got your back, blah, 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 to hell and back. But in reality, there's only a few that can really live up to that creed. And these are the men that lived up to it. That from the time they stepped into the game, they lived it to the fullest until they died. And for me, being the life that I lived for the last 2 decades and so on, I know this life ain't easy. This life ain't for no punk. It's hard. Especially the times that you're in a box, not knowing when you're going to go home. Especially when you being called out to the yard, knowing you're outnumbered. Knowing that there's no way you can win, but you still show up. Showing up regardless of the outcome. And these people have done that. I've done that. And that's the thing that I can be proud of. You know, it's not to glorify the violence or all the craziness we've been involved in, but it's the mentality that this is what you signed up for. So whatever's in that contract, you fulfill it. And I always tell you, I'm not here to tell people how to live their life, what they're supposed to do with it, or if they're doing wrong or they're doing right. To each his own, whatever works for you. But understand that there's people that are really about it. And if you sign up and you half stepping and you faking, you're going to get exposed and you're going to get dealt with. You know, that's my only message. Like, do what the fuck you want to do, but understand what it's all about. And if you ain't all in, don't even start, you know. So just let me read you this text that I got from my homie that said, when I was asking him about, you know, the homie Gato last week. He said, yes, he was TS first from the 70s and was in Lompoc by himself for a long time, where he became really good friends with some members of the Cali MA. And he never told them that he was a TS. So they made him a prospect for a while, and he brought a couple bodies for them. And then they made him, you know, meaning they gave him the mark, the Black Hand. Because one of those bodies, he was shipped to Leavenworth, Kansas. This was before my time, 1993. And there, a member of the TS from Loretto named Renee confronted the MA about a member of theirs that had jumped ship and dropped his flag. He explained the whole situation to Black Bob, but according to Black Bob and them, they could not let the TS put hands on him because now he was one of them. So they told the TS to go to the yard at lunchtime to talk about it. And only a few TS went, but all the MA and Serenios went. Once in a corner where they were supposed to have the meeting, the assault began. They first stabbed Renee, but he wouldn't go down no matter how many times they stabbed him. And he finally went down unconscious after getting hit in the head with a bocce ball. A knife was left stuck in his chest and he was left for dead. Now keep in mind, bro, this story is being told to me by the MA dudes themselves. And they even admire the dude Renee. Anyhow, Renee wakes up from his coma, pulls out the knife in his chest, and starts stabbing the MA dudes. And that's where they turn around and finish him off. According to Wero Shyrock, or Wero Shy for short, they even have a day celebrating in the name of the TS Renee. That's what I know, bro, and hopefully that helps you. You know, these dudes went up against their enemy, killed their enemy, but because of the way Renee fought, because Renee stood on his principles. You know, when it comes to conflict like this, there's no really right and wrong. Everybody trying to live up to their codes of ethics. Everybody trying to abide by their laws. Everybody trying to represent their side. Through the course of my time, I bumped heads with different races and different gangs. And I had some of the young homies ask me, man, we just went to war with these dudes. How are you cool with them? I said, war is war. We all understand. When shit pop off, we draw a line. We all go to our corner. But that don't got nothing to do with respecting a man for being a man, for representing his interests, for representing his side. You know, and it's hard for people to contemplate that you can be enemies but still respect each other. And there's a lot of dudes that I bump heads with that I have respect for. But for whatever reason, we couldn't resolve our issue through conversation and we crashed. But at the end of the day, once the issue is settled on and agreed upon, you shake hands, that's your word. After you shake hands and agree that everything's cool, everything's done with, and move on, that's what you do. You don't sit back and talk bad or bicker or throw a slide remark or puff out your chest. There's no need for men to do that because we both already know that, hey, when it's time to go, when we can't agree upon an issue and violence has to be the result of it, that both sides are going to go and going to crash and going to do our part. And at the end of the day, you have to respect. It has to be respected. You know, I've got a lot of dudes that I've bumped heads with through the course of my bid that today are some of my good friends because through the course of the chaos and the drama, we develop a respect for each other because we understand that we're individuals of the same mind and same mentality and same heart. And again, you know, you're going to meet a lot of people that say this and say that, but there's very few that live up to it. So welcome to the USP.